Previously on KSP Revival, we arrived at the Atlas star system to explore a couple of planets, those being Icarus and Erebus, where we unfortunately got destroyed by the Kraken. This episode, we're going to be exploring Poseidon and Plutus. Welcome back to KSP Revival. Hey guys, sorry for the slightly late video. I actually just came back from a vacation and I couldn't get home in time to finish this video. And better late than never, I was kind of thinking about skipping this week because if I don't upload on Saturdays, I believe the YouTube algorithm gets a little wacky and starts nuking my channel. So, it's still pretty close to Saturday though, so I'm not too worried. Anyway, last episode, as I discussed in the intro, we visited Icarus, which is a hot Jupiter, which has a massive comet tail, because it's constantly being blown away by its parent star. We also visited Erebus, which is a Venetian planet with an incredibly thick atmosphere of 95 atmospheres of pressure. It's not too bad for our SSTO, it's actually very powerful in a thick atmosphere. However, if you use physics warp in a very thick atmosphere like that, or go too fast, or just put too much aerodynamic stress on your vehicle, the Kraken will send your vehicle into the void, so be careful when flying on Erebus. The next planet we'll be visiting this episode is going to be Poseidon, which is a toxic super Kerbin with a whole lot of gravity. I made sure to design the Singularity SSTO to be able to land and return from high gravity environments. May also see that Poseidon has a very nice ring system. Maybe it has a few tiny little asteroid moons. Poseidon may seem somewhat habitable from afar, but it's not habitable at all. It's extremely toxic, and the Kerbals aren't going to stick around for long unless they get poisoned by whatever heavy metals or toxins reside on its surface. It also has pretty high gravity, so every day is going to be leg day pretty much for these Kerbals if they decide to live here. So it's not going to be a very good colonization candidate, but to be honest, I don't really want to make colonies in this series anymore, at least for quite a while, because we already have enough colonies. The one I have on Creek, back at the harmonious system where our homeworld is perfectly capable to actually construct vessels and refuel them. Even if I can't find too much fuel on Creek, I can just go scoop some graviolium from Magnifica or Glurka, which are the two gas giants in the system. Technically, Glurka is a Hycean planet, but it's kind of like a gas giant. It's big, has a thick atmosphere, has a lot of hydrogen, so it's kind of like a gas giant. A notable feature of the Ultimatum interstellar vehicles that's actually augmented by an inertia dampener, which is a weird contraption that uses graviolium to significantly boost the thrust and ISP of your engine. It's a little bit cheeky, but at this phase in the game, it's basically a sandbox. I have unlimited delta V, basically, so to be honest, I don't really care that much. I do have warp drives unlocked, which might actually be more powerful than this device, especially in stock blue shifts with secret parts enabled, because this inertia dampener is a secret part hidden within the mod file that you actually have to convert from a text file to a config for it to work. It's experimental. Usually it's not too overpowered because it uses a whole lot of graviolium, but I had to significantly buff it because I didn't want to keep running out in time warp, and without the buff, interstellar burns using it would have probably been impossible. I don't really see this as too unfair because I would have warp drives. I would be using them, but the Nebulon, which is my previous warp vessel that I used in this series, is extremely laggy for some reason. I have no idea why, but using warp drives just lags my game out for some reason. I asked around about the issue, but a whole lot of people just saying they just aren't having the lag. I have no idea. Maybe it's a Celestial Harmony thing, which is a system replacer. I'm not sure if it's a system replacer, but I'm really not sure. If you have any ideas as to what's causing the lag with Blue Shift's parts, please let me know. I really want to fix this. And I will be using Blue Shift in later series. Hopefully it won't get me trouble there. If you're trying to do a landing on Poseidon, the descent is actually going to be very risky, because the mix between the high gravity and the slightly thicker atmosphere makes your vessel very susceptible to atmospheric heating. In fact, I could barely deploy the air brakes without them burning off, so eventually I gave up and entered a somewhat uncontrolled spin. I couldn't deploy the air brakes without them exploding, and since I am going to be using this for future landings, I probably should keep those on. And the engines are about to explode, so this is basically my last resort. Thankfully we don't explode, so we can continue to land. Poseidon's high gravity makes normal engines feel a little bit weaker, so you do have to have a lot of extra thrust to make up for the lost TWR. This SSTO also has VTOL engines that do have enough TWR to take off from Poseidon. I actually make sure they had enough TWR, because this is basically the Singularity SSTO's big benchmark. This is like the most hostile body it's going to land on. Also, there's a shooting star a few seconds ago, if you have noticed that. It's pretty cool how a whole lot of planet packs, Cosmic Serenity included, have shooting stars now. I like how a whole lot of planet packs are adding nice little features to make the game a lot better. And we did have a little bumpy landing, but we actually ended up in one piece. We are somewhat on an incline. It's not the best landing spot, it's a little bit rocky, so I will be moving the Singularity to a slightly flatter position. I do have parallax scatter collisions disabled, mostly because if I just hit a tiny rock, the entire spaceplane would probably explode. Next, time to use one of my favorite parts about this spaceplane, which is its inline boarding ramp. Instead of having a bunch of ladders, I actually have a boarding ramp instead, so the Kerbals can just walk down instead of having to climb a long ladder for like 5 hours. It's a lot more convenient. I also think it looks a lot better. This boarding ramp also has room for 2 extra Kerbals. I'm not going to be filling those seats, but in case the helium crew variant isn't enough to ferry the entire crew down, I can just use the 2 extra seats to help it out. I actually managed to get a whole lot of Kerbals down here. I mean, this place is super toxic, so it probably wasn't the best idea. But at least it's not as hazardous as Erebus. That place had 95 atmospheres of pressure. Okay, we've taken our photo op. There's nothing left to do here, so we're gonna board the SSTO and then get our crew back to orbit. I should really be using these boarding ramps more often for large SSTOs like the Singularity. Ladders are just very inconvenient to use, especially if you're on a high-gravity world like Poseidon, because Kerbals, when under high gravity, take 5,000 years to climb ladders. It's just super annoying, especially if you got 6 Kerbals on board. The Kerbals do have to jump a little bit to get on the ramp properly, but it's not too bad, especially if you time it right. Also, a little bit of a tour here, not a very good one, more of a rapid. I was just walking around looking for a sea in there. I do left out OPT Spaceplane Parks has some very beautiful IVAs. Yeah, the most challenging part of this mission is going to be returning to orbit, because Poseidon's high gravity makes it quite a challenge, especially since our air-breathing engines don't produce that much thrust until you reach supersonic speeds. We do have to pitch down a bit and almost crash to a mountain just to get enough velocity to start accelerating properly. Poseidon has a very weird sky. I'm not sure if it's a mix of the off-graying color of the sky and the weirdly shaped clouds, but Poseidon has a very bizarre sky. The air-breathing engines are very good at high-altitude flight, but eventually they do cut out when you have to only use the vacuum engines from here. It's very challenging to actually reach orbit with the vacuum engines only, because these engines are pretty powerful, but the TWR is somewhat low because Poseidon's gravity, I've said this several times, is very high. So we do have to pitch up quite aggressively in order to achieve orbit safely. But these engines are also extremely efficient. In fact, I'd say they're quite overpowered. They just need a whole lot of electric charge, and thankfully Stirling Systems power cells provide way more than any nuclear reactor would. I mean, fusion reactors might also provide the necessary power, but they do take up a lot of mass and space and need a lot of radiators. They are more properly balanced for gameplay reasons. But Stirling Systems fuel cells are overpowered and make ion-based landers possible, so they're a great part. All they need are a metal like beryllium, which are loaded onto the fuel cell, and an oxidizer, which is just oxidizer since it's using the stock fuels. It's very easy to use, and you don't need radiators at all. You can also recharge them if you run out. You just need a whole lot of electric charge coming from an alternate source. I'm doing a direct transfer because I have basically unlimited Delta V and I don't want to waste any more time doing this mission. To be honest, I'm kind of getting tired of recording KSP revival episodes because this series has just been going on for so long. But then again, I do want to make sure I finish this series completely. That means I want to explore every body in Cosmic Serenity, even as it gets updated. Like Cosmic Serenity and Celestial Harmony are still in development. So after I finish exploring the Atlas system, this series will be put on a little pause, and then once it gets updated again, I'll continue the series where it left off. Also, another thing, this is going to be a slightly shorter episode. I probably should have mentioned that slightly earlier, but to be honest, that's not really important right now. What is important is that we're actually going to be visiting our next planet, that being Plugus. Plugus is a vacuum world that, like Poseidon, also has rings. Plugus also has a very high gravity and apparently has a lot of diamonds on its surface, so maybe we can take some home and sell them for profit. But this is a science save, not a career save, so it probably wouldn't matter. It's also at this point I noticed that for some reason the Singularity SSTO is slightly clipping into the ultimatum. Hopefully that doesn't cause too many issues when I undock it. Doing these long deceleration burns are really annoying because the stock maneuver tool is broken, it's just stupid, it doesn't even get it right. Kerbal Engineer Redux, it's not entirely honest, it often has me start late, or too early, it's never completely accurate for some reason. I mean, thankfully I can easily adjust the TWR by increasing the thrust limiter. I have the engine usually on 12% thrust because if it were at max thrust with the inertial dampener, it would be giving me a TWR of 50, like over 50, something crazy like that. So for that reason, I severely limited the throttle. Now, you may have noticed the recurring mistake that I kept doing. For some reason, I keep leaving the fuel cells on so they completely deplete all the resources. So I had to quickly redock the lander to the mothership so I could get that fuel cell recharged. I have no idea. I just keep leaving them on. I keep forgetting. Maybe I shouldn't be basing all of my landers off of the same ion engine fuel cell design. But then again, it is the most powerful solution I have for landers. Basically everything else either irradiates the surface like nuclear salt water, or just doesn't give me enough Delta V for anything. This lander is very optimized for high gravity vacuum worlds. In fact, it can basically land on very high gravity worlds like Neath and the Anubis system, which has like 2 or 1.8 Gs or something crazy like that. This one is only like around 0.9 Gs, so it's going to be very easy for us. But yeah, this lander kind of removes all the fun and challenge from vacuum landings on heavy gravity worlds. But to be honest, I don't really care. I just want to finish the series and get everything done. I love the way Plugus looks with all the cracks and the unique surface features. It's also a pretty unique color, but a whole lot of that might be attributed to its parent star, which is a slightly yellowish star. It's not entirely white like Kerbal. I believe it's Atlas B minor. Oh, it's Atlas B. Atlas A is a binary system in the center, which currently has no stars. Hopefully the Atlas system gets a few more stars. Now as we land, these landing gear pretty much push their limit. They're completely crushed. In fact, the engine might be a little bit damaged at this point. But this is Kerbal Space Program, where damage doesn't exist. Either a part exists or it doesn't. Thankfully, I put the ladders really close to the ground, so Kerbals don't have to walk that much. I did use the wrong EVA hatch for a minute, so I have to get the Kerbal back in to correct my mistake. sorry if this voiceover is being a little lackluster. I'm just kind of tired. I did come back from a very long road trip last night. I mean, I could have just waited till the end of the week to release this video, but the show must go on. I'd really rather keep these videos coming out at a weekly rate. For a bit, I was considering doing a biome hop to one of Plugus' main defining features, that being its massive dark spot for something. But I really wanted to finish this mission. I was just kind of tired of this entire mission at this point, so I just decided to take off and return to orbit and rendezvous and dock with Ultimatum. This lander also has a weird issue. It always wants to pitch somewhere else. It just doesn't fly straight. I have no idea why. I have no idea how the center of mass could be offset in a way that could make the actual lander start spinning out of control. Thankfully, with a bit of gimbal and SAS, they'll have to do it manually. I can maintain control. And we can skip all the rendezvous fluff and skip straight to docking. But unfortunately, that will be the end of this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and I'll see you all later.